This podcast is brought to you by Grossbusters Power Washing. With over 15 years of experience, we ensure you get the outcome you desire. Locally owned and operated. Call us today, 520-955-0161, or visit azgrossbusters.com. Dove Mountain Epoxy Floors specializes in residential garage floors. They provide superb craftsmanship in a timely manner. Their floors are durable, sleek, and pristine. Get a free quote today at 520-429-8170 or visit dovemountainepoxy.com.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Now You Know, and we are honored to have Mr. Bob Elliott in the house today with us, local legend, and we're going to tell some of the story that Mr. Elliott, Bob, brings to us.
Hey, great, welcome, Bob. Great to be here.
Welcome. Bob and I met personally 3 or 4 weeks ago with your wife. I want to touch on that real quickly, Beverly.
Sure.
You guys were here preceding the launch of the African American Museum
of Southern Arizona.
Right. It just opened a couple of weeks ago downtown. Is that correct?
Well, it's on the campus of the University of Arizona. The website is www.aamsaz.org. So think of AAM, African American Museum, SAZ, Southern Arizona. We are located in the Student Union at the University of Arizona in room 244, right around the corner from the U of A bookstore.
And we're going to do more on that. And at the end of this episode, we'll have more information on how to get a hold of those. And then I also want to talk about your book, and there will be information on that. Tucson,
a basketball town. How Tucson became a basketball town. A lot of people do not know the real history. And the real history is that when the gentleman named Fred Snowden became the head basketball coach here back in 1972, he came here. He was also the first African-American, first black to be a head coach in NCAA Division I at a major university. And that's 1972. That's not that long ago.
No.
And he came here, came from the University of Michigan as an assistant coach, which is why there's a heavy flavor of Michiganders that played here at Arizona, like myself.
You showed up in 73.
73. I showed up in 73. I mean, literally, Coach would fly into Detroit Metro Airport, go see his mother, grab a bunch of us, and he'd say the same speech. Okay, let's go west and start history.
And you did.
Oh, this is
did.
It.
I want to touch on that a little bit. But again, Tucson,
Tucson, a basketball town.
Great read. I'm reading it right now. We'll give you more information on that. So let's talk about it. You grew up in Ann Arbor.
Ann Arbor, Michigan, born and raised.
And graduated high school there in 73.
Yes.
And so talk about that. I've seen a couple pictures of the young Bob. I was saying before we started, I felt like I knew you then because I'm of that same age group.
Right. Well, Ann Arbor is a town where my dad was also born and raised there. And at that time, it was a small town. We jokingly used to say, University of Michigan is there. And back then, the football stadium, also known as the Big House, used to hold 101,101. Our town wasn't but about 60,000, 70,000 people. You could easily have a town meeting inside the football stadium. But I was born and raised there. Went to elementary school in Ann Arbor, junior high. We didn't have middle schools at that time. And then high school, Pioneer High School, which is located right across the street from the Big House.
So you grew up
I grew up right
across
there.
The street.
Yes.
That is cool. And then you started playing basketball at an early age.
I started back about 4th or 5th grade. Like a lot of kids, you play in the youth leagues. At the time, I was switched over to St. Thomas Elementary, which was a story in itself. So I went to kindergarten at Mack Elementary, which was in our neighborhood. But then I was a drummer. And being a drummer that had a lot of experience, so my parents were talked into letting me go to St. Thomas, which was 1 through 12. And the reason I went over there, the band director there wanted me in the high school band, which I could be in because I was in school there, but more importantly, the high school jazz band.
And what grade were you then?
First.
So you're playing in
the
high school band.
And he was in charge of the all-city high school jazz band. So I auditioned, and I was sitting there at that age as the drummer in the All-City High School Jazz Band.
6 years old.
Yes.
6 or 7.
Right.
Yeah, that's crazy. Do you still play?
Anytime I get my hands on the drums, I'm bad.
I've got some.
I'm bad.
I've got some
I'll tell you,
right behind that
We
wall.
were in a church last week with an event at Living Waters, and if I walk anywhere where I can see drums or keyboard or bass or something, I just gravitate over there and just start making noise.
A note to production. We got a pretty nice set over here. With the drum kit.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We'll make sure it's out when you and Beverly show up.
Okay.
So let's talk a little more now. So now you're playing 7 years old,
Right.
in the high school band, and you start playing basketball.
Playing
fourth or
basketball.
fifth years. Did you realize then that you were pretty good, because you were probably by then starting to get some of your height?
Well, I always played with older kids, and that helped. So actually, when I was in 5th grade, I was playing with the high school team at St. Thomas, and that's when I was playing the point guard. Because I was in 5th grade, I'm maybe 10 years old. I'm not as big as I am now. And so at that point, the family kind of said, for you to be challenged athletically,
Right.
a smaller Catholic school is not going to do it.
Right.
And that's when 7th grade I started in the public school called Forsyth Junior High. Yeah, which was great experience. Being at the University of Michigan is right there in Ann Arbor. So my 9th grade year, my student teacher was Rudy Tomjanovich.
Is that right?
Yep. So him with Coach Anderson. And,
Wow.
and so Rudy, which I still to this day, talked to him a couple weeks ago, and I call him student coach.
That is
And-
cool.
and,
So he was a kid.
He was a senior
Yeah.
at Michigan. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
Rudy's one of my favorite dudes from way back.
Rudy taught me how to
Remember
shoot a
that
bank shot.
incident?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely. Because
that's kind of when I got turned on to Rudy.
well, that incident, I feel bad because I'm also good friends with Kermit Washington.
So
But
you got both sides
I
here.
have both sides.
Yeah.
I mean, Kermit feels bad. But,
Oh, yeah.
If you just picture when all of a sudden a fight breaks out, all right, and you're on the road, you're basically protecting yourself
Right.
from anything and everything.
Right.
Rudy's running into it to break people up. Kermit doesn't know that. Now, at the time, Kermit was one of the few guys in the league that believed in weightlifting. So he was a beast. Okay,
Yeah.
He was strong.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Well,
absolutely.
he sees something out of the corner of his eye coming
Yeah.
at him, he swings.
Yeah.
And then, the rest is history. I mean, it's sad,
Yeah.
but
it-
Rudy that's my man. He taught me how to shoot a bank shot. I remember playing when I was at the Nets, and he was with the Rockets. And so
Yeah.
he had everybody on the Rockets doing pranks on me during the game, such as, somebody comes to set a screen, they're coming off the
Right.
screen, they'd pull my pants down. And they'd laugh at me. Hey, that's from Rudy.
This is in the NBA.
This is NBA, yeah. That's from Rudy. I said, Coach.
Rudy says, "Hey,
Student coach, come on now.
come on."
Let's play. But no, he great guy. Love him to death. He was
Yeah.
very inspirational. Yeah. Because he's the type of guy where here he is. Okay, he's Rudy Tomjanovich.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm a junior high kid. But he would take the time to help you and talk to you. And it's like, okay, there's a saying, those that have been blessed, there's a responsibility to take it
Exactly.
forward.
Exactly.
And so I know that with people like himself, that influenced me. Dave Bing, Bob Lanier, Willie Norwood, Archie Clark. These guys all would spend time with us as kids, which means that if you ever are blessed enough to have that kind of bio,
Yeah.
then your responsibility is to spend time with the kids also.
Boy, you're throwing name. I mentioned Bob Lanier. We'll talk about him a little later. But Bing and people like that, those are the guys that inspired me to be a basketball player as
Right.
best I could be. Believe it or not, I scored 50 in a game one time.
Okay, no threes.
And
then.
there was no
There were
threes back then.
Yeah.
I mean, we had to work for them then. But I love the game. I still love the game. It's the most athletic people on the planet. I always felt were
basketball players.
definitely.
Not
Not
the
even
speed,
close.
the
Yeah.
agility,
Yeah.
the strength.
Yeah.
Here's a good story for you about Dave Bing and Bob Lanier. So they were both playing on the Pistons.
Right.
The Detroit Pistons used to do what they called the Goodwill Tour throughout the state of Michigan. So they came through Ann Arbor, and we got a packed house in the gym. And so they decided to bring the two hot shot ninth graders, myself and a guy named Edgar Birch, out on the court to play 2-on-2 with Dave Bing and Bob Lanier. So I'm sitting there. I'm thinking he's going to realistically. Okay, Bob was not playing hard, but I can't tell myself that. I'm like,
and you're 14 years old.
I'm 14, so I shake him. I go to the basket. Dave Bing is under the basket, right? So I'm saying to myself, he's a guard.
Yeah.
So I go up to dunk it. So I go up. Dave goes up. Dave caught my dunk, took me and the ball back down to earth, and said, "You're not that big yet, big fella."
No. You know, sit down, Bob.
And I'm saying, he's a guard.
Yeah, and you probably had him at that point.
I had about a few inches.
Yeah,
But I had about a couple of inches,
yeah.
but just the fact that he was a guard.
Yeah.
And so that was a rude awakening, but also let me know that regardless what somebody plays position-wise, you got to play them.
Yeah. When you talk about the Pistons, you must know I'm a Chicago Bulls fan,
right,
through and through, from the jump.
Mm-hmm.
People like Jerry Sloan,
right,
grew up
hard
down the
nose.
street, grew up down the street from where I grew up.
And
great
coached
guy
like that too.
Oh yeah, was just a wonderful human being. I had the pleasure of seeing him from here and there. So when you mentioned the Pistons, automatically I could feel my blood pressure go just a little.
That's right. No, and then see, Dave Bing, after he got done playing, started Bing Steel.
Mm-hmm.
He was delivering to all the auto manufacturers the steel that they use to make the cars. And so because of that, excellent businessman, very bright.
Yeah.
So he became involved in a lot of corporate boards. So when I started moving up into that ladder, I called Dave. Say, hey, okay, you've already done this.
What are we doing?
Okay. How do you do this? What am I looking for? What am I supposed to do, et cetera? Then he was very successful at that. Then he goes in and loved the city of Detroit and tried to turn the city of Detroit around and became the mayor.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd forgotten that.
That's right. No,
I'd forgotten that.
Good people.
I want to jump back to the U of A because we've got so much to cover, and we're trying to do this in a reasonable time frame. But I want to go because I want to come back to that.
Okay.
And the stuff that you're involved in now. But we got to get back to 1973.
73.
U of A.
Right.
Coach Snowden.
Right.
And how? Because at that time, the U of A was having a hard time even selling the first building out. Yep. And now you've moved into McHale, I believe, that year? Or?
Yeah. People do not realize that when Coach Snowden took this job, they were playing in Bear Down. They were finishing McHale Center. So he starts out in Bear Down Gym, a gym that's seated 3,000.
Right.
And before he came here, they were averaging less than 1,000 people at the games.
And McHale is, at that time,
it's about 13,600.
So we're going from 3,000, which we can't sell out,
right,
to 4 times that amount.
But then Coach Snowden, just from the red-blue scrimmage to start the season out, people were like loving it. Mm-hmm. And so they sold out the 3,000-seat Bear Down for those had half a season, and then moved without an established season ticket base over to McHale and sold that out too the first year.
Isn't that crazy?
It really is.
I mean, it's just everything had to line up, didn't it?
Completely. Just the enthusiasm.
Everything had to line up.
The stories were that, Bear Down did not have air conditioning. All right, so you get too many people in there. Oh, yeah. They're opening up the windows, and people would be out on the lawn because they knew the windows would be open, just listening to what was going on. Right. So
the U of A moved into McHale in
February of 73.
73.
Which is the 72-73
and you showed up on campus in August of 73.
Right, the second year.
Okay, Big Bird, how'd that come about?
So a lot of times in locker rooms, regardless of the sport, there's a lot of chatter going on.
Yeah.
I just call it chatter.
Yeah.
And guys were sitting there talking about, that I look like a pigeon and they said big pigeon because I had these skinny legs and this big upper body. And Al Fleming, who ended up being my roommate on the road, he was one of my best men at our wedding. He said, no, he looks like Big Bird on Sesame Street. And so that was the start of it. I guess, skinny legs.
Yeah.
You know how Big Bird looks.
Yeah.
The big,
I
had an 8-inch afro and that. So, it kind of stuck. What I love about the story of Big Bird, though, a lot of people don't know, back then, the basketball games for U of A were on tape delay, coming with Channel 11, KZAZ. The transmitter for Channel 11 was in Nogales. So down in Nogales, it was showing up crystal clear like it was a CBS,
Right,
NBC,
right.
ABC. In Tucson, people had the rabbit ears, and they're putting aluminum foil on it, moving around to make sure they can see the game.
You were doing it too, weren't you?
Got
Gotta watch yourself.
Watch the after game. So my wife and I go down to Nogales, across the border, and we're looking at the curio shops, and people are coming out of the woodwork, out of the stores, and they're yelling something at me. I'm like, I mean, I don't know what it is. So there's one guy, and his name of his shop was Honest John's. Okay, which and then something you're like, come on now, what are you gonna sell me now? But he said, no. He said, Bob, you gotta understand something. To us in Nogales, you're a rock star.
Yeah.
Because you come on TV here, and then what they were calling me was pajarito, which means birdie in Spanish.
Isn't that great? Say it again.
Pajarito, like a pájaro is the bird. Pajarito, like birdie.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what? I like that. I like that.
Yeah. So you hung out in Nogales a lot from then on, didn't you?
No. Just every once in a while.
You know what's funny, because I have recollection of a kid watching the NBA Finals. I know for a fact it was tape delayed.
Back then, that's right.
I'm talking
You're right.
late 60s, early 70s.
That's
I
right.
can't time frame it exactly.
You're right.
But I remember watching the NBA Finals
on tape delay. That's right.
It'd come on like at 10:30 after the local local news went off. And now here we've got.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's 24/7, and I'm okay with that. Don't get me wrong.
No.
I prefer watching it live over tape delayed. But
right.
So a lot of the game has evolved. Not only on the court, but off the court. When I say on the court, I'm talking, of course, about the Warriors and people like that.
Right, yeah.
Let's go back. The style of play. I'm not sure if I do like old school. I like the points, but I like people playing a little bit of defense at some point. But let's go back. 1973, so you're a freshman. You show up from Ann Arbor. Right. You probably hadn't been out here before, would be my guess, other than maybe a trip to see what it looked like out here.
That was it, a recruiting
trip. And you showed up in August. That's right. It's 100
who knows what.
Yeah.
No,
what'd you think?
First thing you think of is when you come out of the clouds and you look down out your window and it's brown.
Yeah.
You know, coming from Michigan, it's like everything's
green.
Yeah, so that was different. You appreciate it around November and December and January, February, and March, because back home, face it, from Thanksgiving to Easter, it's nothing.
Especially
it's
where you're from.
Oh, yeah. It's gray, nasty, just
no sunshine for 6 months.
No, that's right.
So a lot of basketball and drumming.
I remember going to my first game at McHale. We walked over from the dorm, and I'm in shorts and flip-flops.
And it's
in November.
November.
Yeah, late November.
For reference, today is the last day when we're recording this of November.
Right.
We may be overdressed.
We're in polos, short sleeve shirts.
So the thing I find interesting on top of so many things that you've done is you're the number 2 scorer in U of A history.
Well, that took a lot of teammates passing you the ball. You could be called the black hole that you never gave it back. But, with our guys, when they gave it to me, they always told me, no, we gave it to you to put it in the basket.
Put it in there.
Yeah, you don't need to kick it. Nowadays, they talk about, you bring outside in, inside out, kick it down to the guy posting up, and then he kicks it back out for the three-pointer, which we didn't have three-pointers back then. Right. But back then, 2 is 2, whether you were 2 feet from the basket or 25 feet from the basket. So
now, when did they change the rule? Because I believe it was the Alcindor/Jabbar rule about dunking.
You're exactly right. So
is that in that time frame?
It is in that time frame. So we're not allowed to dunk. The thing I remember
isn't that crazy? That's
if you think about Bill Walton with UCLA when he had 44 points or something ridiculous against Memphis State, and he couldn't dunk. So he's going to the basket and kept just literally laying it in there.
Yeah,
he went something like
21 for
20
22
20.
or something.
Yeah, unbelievable. With no dunks.
Yeah.
He couldn't dunk it.
Yeah. I remember that game.
Yeah, no,
I remember that game
because he was playing against a guy named Larry Keenan, who went on to have a great pro career. But Larry was like 6'9".
Yeah.
Now I know Bill, know him personally. Okay, our families are good friends.
Yeah.
He's always said he was 6'11". Bill, I love you, but you are not 6'11", okay? Some coaches will sit there and make your height
A little
big,
more.
yeah, a little more, like they did with me.
Yeah.
I mean, Coach Snowden was trying to count some of my afro.
Yeah.
I had me listed as 6'10" as a freshman.
Yeah.
I've never seen 6'10" in my life.
But you're 6'8 and a half or 9
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Whereas some coaches will do it the other way, like Bill. Bill's not 6'11". He's 7-something.
Yeah.
And he's long.
Yeah.
My rude awakening for that was the second game of my U of A career. We go over to L.A. and we're playing USC. I look in the program. It says Bob Elliott, 6'10", 222 from Ann Arbor. And and the center field of the team was Jack Lampert, who was supposedly 6'10", 225. I go out for the center jump. I'm probably at that time 6'7" and a half, 6'8" if you're stretching it.
Right.
He was probably 7 feet.
Yeah.
So I go out for the center jump. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Okay,
We're the same
I backed
height?
off. I backed off.
Yeah.
I said, Coach, what's going on here?
Yeah.
He said, just win the tip. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
You know, so when did they change? Did it change during your tenure at the U of A? The dunk? I can't remember.
It was
when
before then. It was before then sometime. I never had
can't
that
remember,
pleasure.
yeah.
You know, the other big rule change back then was that freshmen became eligible to play Coach Snowden's first year, the 72-73 year. So freshmen, as a matter of fact, he started 5 freshmen, you know, coming in. They called them the Kiddie Corps.
Yeah.
And that was part of the transition of Arizona basketball.
Were they, help me out here, how those 5 at the end of the 4 years, were you guys still?
No. The main guy was Eric Money.
Yeah.
Point guard,
Yeah.
leader of the team.
Yeah.
You had Jim Rappas. Now, Rapp stayed all 4 years, so he'd have been a year ahead of me.
Okay.
And he was a senior on our 76 team and went to the Elite Eight. Al Fleming. Okay, stayed 4 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so, again, he was there when we did that. Al, the one that nicknamed me Big Bird, but that's another story.
Yeah.
Coney Norman stayed 2 years in school. He was a shooter, one of the best shooters I've ever seen. I've only seen 2 people that I know that I've seen in person sit at the top of the key, shoot the ball, had a special arc on it that they did not need a rebounder. It would look like a golfer that throws a shot up there on the green and it spins back.
Yeah.
And that's Coney Norman and Steve Kerr.
Yeah.
They just, they just know the arc. They have the spin on it, and they would do that. The other guy was a guy named John Irving, who that first year after he transferred, so I never got a chance to play with John. But those are the 5 guys. That was the the infamous Kiddie Corps. Now, the story I love about Alcindor becoming Kareem. So his freshman year, he was not allowed to play on the varsity.
Right.
And they had him and Lucius Allen and a bunch of other guys. The UCLA varsity that year went undefeated and won an NCAA tournament. When they played preseason against the freshman team,
they lost.
They lost by 15. Okay.
Well, UCLA at that time had the best team as a starting 5,
right?
And the second best team in America was the bench, without a question.
No doubt. We think about when Bill Walton was there. His backup center, a guy named Swin Nader, who also got drafted in the first round and had a great NBA career.
Yeah.
So
that's just we'll never. I mean, that's
the gone.
logistics. That's never happening.
Some of that is because guys aren't staying in school.
Well, that's a chunk of it is that.
If you have some decent numbers, guys are gone.
And you blame them? I mean,
no, by no means. I
mean the money we're talking. I mean, one contract sets your family for life.
Yeah, if you handle it right.
You know, not to get too far afield, but I actually one time I'm an investor. I love investing in unique stuff. And one of the things I invested in, I can't think of the name of the company right off the top of my head, but it was to help professional athletes or people who acquired large amounts of money. Athletes,
lottery winners are the same way.
Like 80%,
right? Yeah, that
are broke in 7 years, and
exactly.
It's like crazy.
ESPN had a good documentary on that called Broke.
I've seen that, yeah.
And they went through, and at the end of it, they had rolling, besides the credits,
all the people.
Alphabetically, all the guys who had filed for bankruptcy.
And it was going fast.
Oh, yeah.
And it was, I ended up not staying in that, Bob. You know why? How can I fix human nature?
Right.
So it was like, this is a great thing.
There are so many other variables. At one point, I tried to be in that kind of business. Like, it just doesn't work. Yeah. Between family pressures, friends, all of a sudden, your fifth cousin removed is coming up saying, "Man, remember, we're at that picnic together. I need 20 grand."
I'm not going to throw his name out there because he's a guy that's still in the news a lot. But when he got married to his wife at one point, he got married. He had 28 people on his payroll, family members, cousins, aunts, uncles. It's a big name. I mean, you'd recognize the wife's name bigger than his name, maybe.
That's not an uncommon story.
And it wasn't even like they were contributing. When I say on the payroll,
it
was just gifts, basically.
Right.
We're running a website. Well, you're not selling anything on your website. The car, we're paying for the car and the insurance and the house.
Right,
and,
that's right.
It's nice to be benevolent, but
within reason. One of the best conversations I was ever part of was John Thompson, when he was alive, talking to Dikembe Mutombo. And I was there it was the three of us, and Coach Thompson was trying to stress to Dikembe, okay, what you're doing back home is wonderful.
Yes.
It's great. You're helping, your people, but you got to make sure that you have enough to help yourself and your family that's here. There has to be some discipline and some rhyme or reason to what you're doing.
Yeah.
And Dikembe, okay, Coach, I'll say, yeah.
That's exactly what.
Oh yeah. His voice.
Yeah.
He speaks like 5 languages, so they all blend in when he's talking to you.
Yeah. I saw that I don't want to get too far afield, but I saw that a couple of times as a kid growing up. People that were so generous and so benevolent, and yet their own families suffered because of their generosity to strangers. And I'm like, yeah, it's okay to be a good Samaritan, but but check it. Okay, so we want to move on to the NBA. So you played out here
4 years.
Played through, number 2 scorer in the NBA or in the U of A history, only topped by another gentleman whose name is the same
spelling, as Sean, who was a local kid here in Tucson.
Yeah, Tucson guy.
Was going through. And they always said that, Sean Elliott, no relation to Bob Elliott or Bob Elliott.
That was how they labeled him every time, wasn't it?
What really confused people is a couple things. Number one, Sean's father's name was Robert Elliott, Bob.
Yeah.
He went by Bob, worked over at St. Mary's Hospital.
Yeah.
But then we don't help it by calling each other cuz.
Yeah.
So people like, well, you sure you are?
Yeah.
And just the facial resemblances.
Yeah.
I mean, it's.
Well, I had to double check.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, well, I don't think they are because of what you said, but.
Sean's father and my father, who also's name was Bob, looked an awful lot alike. I mean, it's scary. His brother Noel, the one that donated the kidney to Sean, and my brother Brian, carbon copies of each other. I mean, it's a little freaky. It's a little scary.
Well, when I told you I saw the picture of you in high school, you remind me so much of a guy that I went to high school with. And again, we're the same age, and I'm like, yeah, I know. Hey, real quick, speaking of high school, I saw a name in the newspaper print because I pulled it open. Tony Dungy?
Yes.
Are we talking Tony Dungy?
Yes, yeah. Tony and I grew up together. He's from Jackson, Michigan, which is about maybe 20 miles
he was
west.
Quite a basketball player as well.
Basketball was his number one love. And he was actually in our wedding 47 years ago.
Yeah.
But, he to me is the poster child for why you allow high school kids and junior high kids to play everything.
Yeah.
So now they make these kids choose a sport. If you had made Tony choose a sport back in high school, now Tony was all-state, basketball as a guard, baseball as a shortstop, track as a hurdler, and football as a quarterback safety. Okay.
Wow.
If you made him choose,
Yeah.
he would have chosen basketball. And so when he goes to Minnesota as a freshman, they allowed him to do both. Well, his freshman year, he leads the Big Ten in passing as a freshman.
Right.
Is the first guy off the bench for the basketball team. Yeah. That kind of dictated what direction he needs to go. Yeah. But if he had chosen basketball, he never would have become the first black coach to win a Super Bowl in the NFL.
He's such a – I see him on TV now a lot. I mean, he's an inspirational human being. He just –
what you see on TV, NBC, Sunday Night –
you believe that. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind. When I see him, he's real.
He has been like that his entire life.
Well, when I saw that name, I thought, it's Tony Dungy. I mean, it can't be
Oh yeah, no.
That's not a common name. It's got to be.
Oh yeah, it's
Tony.
Tony.
So,
It's Tony. And every
so
summer.
is he the same age you? Are
Exactly.
You guys the same age?
We were trying to go to college together, be a package deal. We looked at Arizona. The problem is back then, whoever the two coaches, the football and basketball coach, somebody had to say he's on my roster for the scholarship and et cetera.
Right.
And I guess
The
football coach and Snowden couldn't agree on that, whereas in Minnesota they did.
I interrupted. You were going to say something else, though.
No, it's just like I said, what you see is what you get. He has always been like that. I remember all those years that he was the defensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings,
right,
and could not get a head coaching job for a lot of reasons.
Right.
But Tony's Tony. He's always been this way, and he'll go into the interview with a cross on his lapel, his Bible in his hand, and they weren't worry about his personality, which, as you see, there's not a lot of flash and flare.
No.
And the question would be, well, so what are your priorities in life? And he said, in this order: God, family, football. Yeah. But I will have a winning program for you. And a lot of people didn't buy it. Until finally the Tampa Bay Buccaneers gave him a shot.
Yeah. I'd love to get him on sometime. Just throwing that out there.
He and his family usually come through here every summer.
I got to ask you one, and I'd love to get him on.
He has family here also on his wife's side. Family, yeah.
I got to ask you, because we're running out of time a little bit, and I want to cover a couple more basketball things before we move into off the court stuff. And I saw a picture of you, and I kind of alluded to this earlier. You, Bob Lanier, Wayne
Embry and Oscar Robertson. Right.
And I'm looking at, because all three of those, I remember Mr. Embry,
who's
got to be.
He was the first black
to
be an executive. To be honest with you, I don't know, but he's the first.
He's quite a bit older than we are.
Definitely.
He played in the 50s, if I'm not mistaken.
With Oscar in Cincinnati.
Oscar. Yeah.
So he was the first black to be an executive with an NBA team.
Yeah. And
then Oscar Robertson, is like, he's the guy that started, he was the guy that's very instrumental with the Players Association.
Yeah. Oscar Robertson was one of the guys that really turned me on to the game of basketball.
Yes.
They'd have the game of the week on.
Right.
The guy just played selfishless basketball.
Right.
Of anything, but selfishness was.
He was a big guy,
and
too.
he was a big dude.
People don't understand. Okay, so my freshman year. So I don't know how Coach Snowden had Oscar Robertson there, but he's there, and you're meeting this guy, and I'm looking at him, and it's like he seems like he's my size or my height.
Yeah.
I thought he was a guard.
Yeah.
But he's big,
he's
strong.
He's what, 6'6", maybe?
They say 6'5", but he was a legitimate 6'5". Yes, a legitimate 6'5". Kind of like Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
People don't really understand how big Muhammad Ali was physically, and quick.
Right.
We ran into him one time, I think my junior year over in L.A., and he sees Coach Snowden, hey, Coach, blah, 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 and Coach is like, hey, come meet the team. And, Muhammad Ali was a character. He was a clowner,
yes,
okay? He'd come up to you, me being one of the bigger guys, and he said, come on, let's go. He flicked a jab at me. Okay?
Yeah.
That stopped about this far from my face. I'm scared to death now. I was saying, if this guy mess around and have a Joe Frazier flashback, I'm toast.
Yeah.
Right? But the physical size of him.
Yeah.
And you think about how he used to dance, and he was so smooth, and
and articulate.
Yeah.
And good looking dude.
Yes, and he told you too.
I'm
the prettiest.
I'm the prettiest. Look at this. But when I saw that picture, I'm like, those guys are the reason I love the game of basketball at varying points in history. Mm-hmm. Bob Lanier, come on.
Yeah, no. He and see, that picture was taken at the time. Wayne Embry's daughter Debbie was the executive director of the Tucson Urban League.
Okay.
And so she puts together this program, kind of like we did with the museum a couple weeks ago in November with Ruby Bridges. So here you have 3 icons.
Yeah.
Okay. Oscar Robertson, Wayne Embry, and Bob Lanier. I was fortunate to be able to be in the picture with them. But really what they were talking about, Oscar and Wayne, was the fact that the March on Selma, okay,
Yeah.
they were with the Cincinnati Royals at that time.
Right.
They're now playing a game in Boston.
We're talking, what is that, 65?
Right, exactly. But Wayne and Oscar's wives had committed to being at the March in Selma. Right?
Right.
They're up, Oscar and Wayne are up in Boston at a game. So they fly to Boston for the game, and there's a private plane waiting for, Mrs. Embry and Mrs. Robinson, and they fly down to Selma telling these people, we've got to be back home before Wayne and Oscar come back in from playing this game. And I guess there was some problems with the flights in that, and they're panicking.
Yeah.
But the story, because the wives were there also
on
a panel telling the story about the March in Selma having participated in that march.
That's fantastic. I love
But,
that.
yeah.
Boy, that's a great story. I didn't know we were going to hear today. That is an incredible story.
And just their eyewitness account of what was going on.
I remember you were 10 years
10,
old.
yeah,
I was 7,
right.
and I remember that time.
Right,
I mean, that
right.
was that was a pretty dark time.
Yeah,
in
exactly.
American history.
Especially like somebody like we had, a couple weeks ago, Ruby Bridges here. People, you say the name Ruby Bridges, most people do not know that.
Yeah.
If you say the Norman Rockwell painting of the 6-year-old black girl being escorted by 4 large white federal marshals to integrate the New Orleans school system, which was the catalyst to integrating schools in the South.
Yeah.
And
And
so
everybody's seen that picture.
everybody's seen that picture.
Everybody's seen that picture.
Everybody's seen that picture.
That is incredible. Okay, we're going to wrap this up because
Okay.
this went by really fast, Bob.
Well, that happens.
Yeah.
Two guys having a conversation.
Yeah. And it's been fun.
Yes,
but
indeed.
we got to talk about what you're doing right now.
Okay.
There's a lot of stuff. I know you're with Eller.
Elliott Business
grad,
College, right?
TEP. You're with the
AAA, the museum.
AAA.
Yes.
You're an accountant as well. Mm-hmm. Give us an overview of what you've done because you played in the pros, the NBA until let me think.
81.
81.
I played played pro
years.
Basketball for 4 years, right?
With the Nets.
Primarily with the Nets.
Nets.
I was drafted by the 76ers, with the Nets for 3 years, and played about 5 months over in Italy that very first year.
And I don't want to gloss over your professional career in basketball, but a lot of the things you've done in those last 40 years
Ooh,
need to be left.
That sounds deep.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
40 years.
Isn't that crazy?
No, hey, it's reality.
But it happens so fast.
When you start receiving Social Security checks,
I know.
I've said that's a hint and a half for you. That if you're old enough to receive a Social
Yeah.
Security check, it means that you've been around here for a little while.
I told people that AARP has been hitting me up for now the last 15 years.
They do?
I turned 65 on the same day that Sean Elliott turns 55.
Okay, Groundhog Day.
And
Yeah.
and his dad, David's dad, and Sean are the same exact age.
Okay.
But I said, AARP, I'm going to pull a Groucho Marx. I wouldn't join a club that would have me as a member,
Right.
number one. And number two, that's only for old people, so I'll wait till I get old. But
ARP is dangerous.
Yes.
You can sign up at 50.
Right.
And they start hawking you at about 48
That's right, they do.
for that $15, $16 a year to be a member.
do.
Yeah.
I haven't. Do you join? Are you a member?
Definitely. I started 50.
Yeah, well,
Once I could. I mean,
I'm
for
like,
15,
hold
16 bucks a year, okay, fine. One of the things you get out of that, though, is if you use your AARP card and you go to a hotel, you will find yourself to be upgraded because odds are that if you're that age, you are not going to have a crazy party going in
that's
there.
true.
You're not going to tear the place up.
true.
And so the
You're gonna
hotels
have
treat
to,
you
have to
better.
sell me on it other than the hotels because I got a hotel guy,
Okay.
Chris Bunting. Thank you, Chris. But the other stuff. But talk to us a little bit about what you've done because you've given back so much to this community over the last 40 years with the things you've been involved with. The business college, etc.
When I talk to high school or even college kids, I usually ask them this question. Look in the mirror and ask yourself, what is something that you enjoy doing? What do you like? Not what your parents are telling you should do or your uncles or aunts or whoever. And if that's something that you feel in your heart. That's like a passion. Then determine, what do I have to do to get the degree that goes along with that? Yeah. So when I came out of high school, I knew I wanted to be an accountant. And so part of me choosing a college was they had to have an undergraduate accounting degree. That was the only deal breaker I had.
Yeah.
UCLA did not have an undergraduate accounting program at that time. So I had to tell Coach Wood, I'm sorry, but that's a deal breaker. Now, back then, the NBA, like my rookie year, the average salary was $75,000 per year. Compared to most people, that's good.
Yeah.
But it's not the $8 million it is right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the average.
That's the average. So I'll be honest with you. Okay. If I were right around now, they'd have to put me out the league. I would keep playing. Where am I going to make $8 million? Okay. And that's the average.
Yeah.
I'll be a good guy on the bench, and
and there's no doubt you, with your size and your skill, come on.
I could do that.
Yeah.
So if you hear a 30 for 30 program coming out about the 67-year-old guy who comes back in the league,
you're the guy.
I'm the guy.
I'm
the guy.
That's funny. We can suit him up. But again, you've been involved. You this is your home.
Oh yeah, we've been here.
This has been your home
since
really
'77. Well, even college.
College.
Yeah.
It's kind of like me. I grew up in Southern Illinois.
Right.
That's my hometown.
Right.
But I've been out here.
That's right.
For forever. And I came in August, late September of '88, and it was hot.
Yeah. It was.
And that was Phoenix, which is even a little hotter. I'm like, I love it here. And then I've never looked back, and my children are both natives.
Right.
I've got a saying, I'm not a native, but I got here as quick as I could.
Isn't that the truth? No, it's a great place to live, great place to raise your family. The biggest difference, I think, between Phoenix and Tucson, besides the fact that we're about 7 degrees cooler.
That's huge.
This is the biggest small town environment that you can think of. I mean,
it's like
we should have one stoplight down a Stone and Broadway.
It's unbelievable for 1 million people
plus
to live in this community.
Right.
And everybody, a buddy of mine, when I first moved to Tucson, and I was selling sporting good equipment. My first sale was to Coach Stitt and Coach Candrea. I call them up, I tell them what I've got. Boom, they want this stuff.
Right.
I mean, I got the good stuff, right? So I met Kendall.
Coach Kendall, right.
Hollered at me across the parking lot down at TEP. I knew who he was, and apparently he knew who I was.
Okay.
Like, hey, swing away. I'm like,
right.
Yeah, you got the right guy. But it was right out of the gate. Rick Peralt, my dear friend, said, Clint, this is like growing up in where you grew up in a small town.
Exactly.
Everybody knows everybody, related to everybody. Make sure.
And U of A Athletics runs it. There's not really a pro team per se, around here. And so this is, and U of A basketball, of all the U of A sports, gets the most publicity.
King of the castle. And then you've got the UMC and Raytheon, and we've covered it all, haven't we, as far as Tucson?
Yep, the school districts. I mean, it is what it is. This is us.
It's a beautiful town.
It is.
I've never regretted. As a matter of fact, since we moved here from Phoenix, that was even the best move.
Right.
Coming to Phoenix first was a great move.
Right, to get you this way.
My mom was like, the kids were little, and we were making a lot of trips back and forth, and I was thinking about, I'd lived at that time where they built the Cardinal Stadium.
Okay.
That was country at that time.
Yeah. Glendale. Way out there,
right. My wife's like, we're in the country. We weren't, but it felt like it, and we were thinking about moving further, and my mom says, hey, why don't you guys move this way? She's getting older. I don't want to move to Tucson. And I got here, and I've not regretted one day of being
by no
here.
means. No.
It feels like it's my hometown now, for sure.
It's home. That's right.
One final thought, Bob.
Okay.
What is of the 50 years you've been here? Because you with the coaches and the players that were playing with you at that time, you guys were really the architects of what we have now over there at McHale.
Right.
You guys, before Lute, rest his soul, got here.
Right.
You guys were laying all the groundwork. You were doing all the heavy lifting.
Definitely. And Lute Olson would never have taken this job.
That's exactly
if
right.
Fred Snowden never lit the fire.
Yeah.
So what Coach Olson did was he relit the fire.
Yeah.
I remember when he was talking with Seth Dempsey about coming to take this job, and I actually was one of the people involved to talk. He said, tell me what it was like back then. And I told him, I said, if you just want a place that's warm, with no following, you can go up the road and go to ASU.
Yeah.
But here, relight the fire,
Yeah.
and this place is ready. It's ready and willing.
Yeah. I remember that time when he showed up out here.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And we were all excited to have him. I mean, it's like this guy
excellent coach. I tell you, having done TV for 29 years and watching Coach Olson, he was a teacher. That's the one similarity I find between Coach Olson and the new coach Tommy Lloyd. Mm-hmm. They are teachers. They teach the players about the game. You understand the X's and O's.
Right.
And you see the player development of what goes on. And just take this particular year, look at Umar Bawa.
Yeah.
I mean,
because they've really kind of come. This is kind of a surprise what they're doing over the last couple of years.
A year ago, I remember going to practices because I've had more interaction with Tommy Lloyd than I had with Coach Olson or Coach Miller in all the years that they were here. So I'm at practice, and they're first starting out, and Tommy's trying to teach us the system and change the culture so it fits him. And I'm watching Umar. I'm like, this kid's probably got 2 or 3 years. He could hardly catch a pass.
Right.
No footwork or anything else. Then to see him play like he did in Maui, where he's playing under control, he's structured, he's disciplined. Great kid.
Right.
I mean, what you see with that smile, he is a
They're fun
great,
to watch, and they're fun
and
to
they're
watch.
fun. They're having fun, and they're doing a great
and
job.
I noticed nationally they're starting to get some love now.
Oh,
They went up
the word is out.
Number 4.
You go to Maui and knock everybody off. Yeah, all of a sudden
in
people
pretty convincing fashion.
Yes, they did.
I got to tell you one real quick story I heard about. You talk about coaching, and this is John Wooden.
Oh yes,
with Bill Walton.
Yes,
and I heard Bill tell this story.
Right.
He spent the first day in practice every year, and he was there 4 years, tying their shoes. First day of practice every year, learning how to tie.
Learn how to tie the shoes and tie it correctly. Yeah. Hey, your feet.
Yeah.
You
how
have
important
your feet.
are they?
Well, yeah, exactly.
Bob, this hour went way too
Appreciate
fast.
it.
I'm looking forward to getting you and Beverly back.
All right, we'll talk about the museum next time.
Thank you so
All right,
much,
buddy.
Bob.
Have a good one.
Appreciate it.
All right,
Thank
man.
you.
Take it easy.